everyone, it's Julia. I'm working on a wall hanging or quilt, mini quilt this week. I'm going to call it Fall at the Cabin. We do have some colors out right now. Some of the leaves haven't had a great year for it. It's been really dry autumn. We've had a wet summer and then the faucet just turned off. So we do have a drier autumn. So the colors aren't what they usually are. But we do have some color. This is just going to be the background of my quilt. I do have a base fabric of quilted muslin, and I chose this grayish blue for the lake. And across the lake from us, so this is kind of a view out my window, across the lake from us, they have maple trees. And the whole shoreline are just these beautiful maple trees. There are houses scattered in here, little cabins, but you can't see them because the trees are just there. So I'm working just on the background. I'm going to add some color on the sky with Inktense pencils. And then on top of this, I'm going to add another layer of birch trees, because we have birch trees that you see. Some of the leaves are still on the birch tree, so I'm going to scatter some leaves. We'll see how it goes. This is going to be kind of abstract. It's not, certainly isn't exactly. And the scale isn't exactly either. I just wanted to create a scene for fall. I have the larger pieces now pinned on, but I'm adding little dots of school glue to the back of some of these smaller pieces. And then I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I'm going to do a lot of stitching on this. I have my free motion foot on. I have my feed dogs dropped. I have a multicolored blue thread on. And I have bobbin thread in the bobbin, which is white. And I'm going to be just meander stitching. I am going to be doing more of the horizontal lines on this. Almost will look like ripples in the water. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. I'm not going to do any going this way. The water part is done. The stitching really adds a lot of detail, a lot of movement to it. I really love the quilting. I'm on to the green now, and I'm going to do more of a tighter meander stitch. I'm thinking maybe some more just circular motions. We'll see. I'll probably outline everything too. So I have the green thread on and still the bobbin thread in. Feed dogs are dropped, so I'm going to do the movement. One of the things when you're free motion stitching, if you speed up, your stitches get longer. If you slow way down, your stitches get closer together. So if you want more of an even stitch, I don't have a stitch regulator on this machine at all, but having an even speed and then even motion too. That's kind of the trick. It takes practice, but it's really fun once you get the hang of it. I'm going to add some color to the sky before I put the birch trees on. I'm just going to use my Inktense pencils for this. Not going to do any detail. I just want to add some blue to the sky. I am going to activate with my fabric medium. These Inktense pencils are quite permanent once they're activated with either water or fabric medium. So I'm just going to lightly add. I don't want a lot of color up there. I don't want it too dark, and these get rather intense if you really use a lot of color. So just want to lightly do it, and then I'm just activating with a paintbrush with some of this fabric medium. I have Steam 2 now that I am going to be using as my paper adhesive. And this is 2 layers. And so I did pull back that 1 layer and I'm laying my pieces on that I'm going to be using for the birch. And also I got this really cool fabric and it has like words on it. It looks like a script that I think is going to add a fun detail to the bark of the birch. And then I have some just different colors there that I'm going to add for the leaves. I'm just going to scatter the leaves around like confetti. So I'm laying that piece back on there, and then I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to get this so that the glue is activated on the back of this. Now, I am not using steam at this point, but when you put your little appliques or whatever you're doing on your project, then you have to use steam. The Steam 2 is such a wonderful product because it does have a temporary stickiness to the back of them, so you can move your pieces around and arrange them however you want. But that temporary glue has to be dissolved with steam or it's going to gum up your sewing machine. So here's a point where I don't have to use steam at this point, but I will when I actually put these little pieces onto my project. I hope that makes sense, but I had to learn the hard way with a lot of thread breaking at one point. I'm just removing the backing now on these pieces and just arranging these birch trees the way that just looks right. We've got one birch tree that's really slanted, so that's what that one is, not straight at all. I hope we don't lose it at some point. It's just pretty much in the water, but yeah, that one is really slanted. And then I'm just arranging these. I am going to be putting a lot of leaves at the bottom of this. We can't see the shoreline. Our cabin is up above, but there's a lot of brush down there. And so I'm going to be adding a lot of leaves to the bottom of this as well as some to the top. I do have the bark all placed the way I want it. And now it's on to adhering this. And this is where you want to use a lot of steam. So I have water in my iron. I have it on full steam. And I'm just going to take my time and just get all this pressed on. And then it's over to my sewing machine to do the free motion stitching on this. I do have my brown thread in, and I'm starting to work on my trees. Again, I have my feed dogs dropped, my free motion foot on, and I'm doing the moving on this. And I've already outlined one of my trees just by going straight down and then straight up. Notice how I get wiggly on parts. That's all you're not even gonna notice it after I get all the other detail on this. So what I'm doing is I'm just outlining those little pieces of bark that I put on. And then in between that, I'm just kind of doing some little marks. So you can hardly see it here. You'll see it better when I get it out of my sewing machine, but you can see what it's looking like. I'm very happy with the way the birch trees turned out. They have a lot of texture on them. And the last layer now is I'm going to do just some fall leaves down in this area and then also around this tree. And as I was sewing, I'm thinking about the next step, and I realized I put some of the stitch or the Seam Esteem 2 on the back side of some of these that are going to be too dark. I want a lighter color in the front. And so I did add some more of the Steam-A-Seam on some lighter colors. I think I might still use maybe a little bit of this one too, some of the lighter colors in that one. I'll see how it goes, but I'm just going to cut little pieces of this. To do that, I want to remove that backing. Oops, got a thread in there. So I'm just going to be cutting little pieces and then sticking them. And I'm not even going to worry about the shape of them. They're just going to be just shapes. And when I'm going to stick them on and then arrange them. And then I'm going to take this to my sewing machine when I get all these different colors on. And I'm just going to meander stitch around with a lot of probably orange thread just to bring them out a little, and we'll see how it goes. I'm going to go through and I'm going to make my little cuts and stick it around, and I'll show you what it looks like before I steam it and before I take it to the sewing machine. I got all my leaves on and placed where I want them. Having that temporary sticky on the Steam-A-Steam too is wonderful for this kind of a thing. Now it's back to my iron, using a lot of steam, and then to my sewing machine. I think I am going to just use like an orange or like a rusty colored thread, and I'm just going to go all over and catch as much of it as I can. And I'll show you at the sewing machine how I'm going to do that. I'll just show you a bit of it. And then I'll be back here just to put the backing on and to finish it up. I've got my stitching all done, and I did some trimming on the sides, and I'm really happy with it. The backing, however, is a mess. And when I work, it just ends up this way. There's a lot of eyelashing where either my tension wasn't quite right or else I went too fast around corners. Also, you can see some of the water, the ink tints, came through. I managed to get a few bobbin nests. I try to always start on the side, but sometimes either some thread breaks or whatever, and I end up starting in the middle, and I forget to do the bobbin thread up. Here I managed to get a leaf hooked on there, and so I am going to cover the back. And I usually do this when I do these. It just like I said, I'm just kind of a mess. And to do that, I already have the backing cut a little bit bigger than the finished, just a little bit on each side. I'll trim that after I cut it. But what I'm going to do is I am going to use a temporary adhesive spray. I'm going to use the 505. I'm going to spray it and just smooth it out. And then I'm going to take it back to my sewing machine, and I'm going to do a little bit of quilting on this. I'm just going to use invisible thread on both the top and the bottom, and I'm just going to just do the outline of the trees. That'll give it enough quilting. And then I'm going to trim, and it's on to the binding. And for the binding, I found this grunge navy that I thought would just make it all pop and look really kind of fun. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish up. I'll show you some pictures at the end. The rest of this is going to be pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to use the invisible thread on the trees, and I'm going to use it on both the top and the bottom. And then it's on to trimming and binding. I hope you enjoyed this, everybody. I love the way it turned out. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. I might hang in my cabin. It might end up being sold at my little flea market shop. And I'm just going to title it Fall at the Cabin, because that is exactly what it looks like. Have a great week. Bye for now.